Welcome to the Via Stoica Podcast, where we discuss Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of living the good life. I'm your host, Bryce, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Benny and Brendan. We are here to help you apply Stoic wisdom to your everyday life, no matter what obstacles you may be facing, whether it be work stress, relationship issues, or just the general ups and downs of life. Stoicism has something to offer us all.
Hello. Welcome to Via Stoica, the podcast. I'm your host today, Brendan. I'm joined here by my good buddy, Benny. How are you doing this morning there, Benny?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just a lot of things on my plate. I don't know what to do, where to start, where to go. It's evening here. I got a lot of things to do. I don't know, Brendan. Maybe I need to kind of slow things down a little bit.
Wow, you sound pretty overwhelmed there.
Getting a little bit of, oh man, if only I was a little bit more overwhelmed. No, I'm doing good.
Oh,
how are you doing in Panama?
good. Had a lot of things going on last week. A lot of responsibilities I had to get to after coming back from a holiday. So very overwhelming week last week, but a much more tranquil, calm week this week. So I thought that would be a good topic for us to discuss feeling overwhelmed and overcoming that feeling of overwhelm, and how the Stoics would do that, what sort of tactics they would use to kind of deal with this issue. But first, I just kind of want to start off right from the beginning and just understand, like, what is this feeling of overwhelm? Like, what exactly does it mean? Does it feel like? Does it look like? Why do we experience it that? So to kick it off right away, I mean, I think of being overwhelmed as just having too many inputs and not enough control with those inputs. So for me personally, I like to time a lot. So if I feel like a lot of things are taking my time, and things that are taking my time don't align with my inner goals or what I want to be doing with my life, then I start to get really frustrated, overwhelmed, angry, really. So for me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, those are kind of what I feel is anger and frustration and like annoyance. And I think, and it goes back to this kind of too many inputs, without enough control. I like to have control over my time, control over, where I'm dedicating my energy to. But also, as any good Stoic knows, I can't control everything. I can't, I have to be conscious of the fact that fate and the world will deliver me things to my doorstep that I don't necessarily want, but I have to deal with them in a calm, cool, collected way. So hopefully today, throughout this conversation, some practical ways to do that. But first, I want to kick it over to Benny and just get his understanding of what feeling overwhelmed is like, and how he experiences that.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of the times when we think about feeling overwhelmed, it's just having a lot on our plate, right? And I thought about that a little bit, right? It is oftentimes, compared to that, right? It's like, yeah, you have a lot of things to do, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things coming all at you at once. But then when I think about doing the things that I really like, for example, working on Via Stoica and, helping other people, then I can work long hours, right? I can do as much of the tasks that I feel I can just, have a to-do list and they just go flying away, right? So I was thinking about that, like, what does it really feel to feel overwhelmed? And we had a conversation about, loneliness. Again, a lot of the things is about being yourself, being within, and knowing the things that you want to be doing. And so when I look at being overwhelmed, it's a lot of the times when you're being taken away from the things that you feel are important, that the things that you think that should be doing, and that take away time from you that you want to be spending in another way, right? So because you can have multitude of tasks, but if they are something that you think are important, then time will just, dissipate, right? It's just that you go into that flow state and you can work. And I've experienced that. And I know if you've experienced that, Brendan, or maybe the listeners have, but you can just go in and suddenly like you've just done a lot of stuff and you didn't even realize it, right? So that's one of the things where I feel like, okay, but then, if you want to do certain things, and then other stuff comes on your plate that you really don't want to be doing, but you have to do that stuff, then you can get overwhelmed because you want to pay attention here, but you are being drawn somewhere else. So that's one of those first things where I feel like, okay, what does it mean really to be overwhelmed and to feel that kind of sensation of stress, anxiety, all of that stuff, right? So that's, again, one part being taken away from who you are. But it can also just be just because you feel like everything is too important to do, right? Again, this is when we're starting a company here, we're building it, we're in the, maybe beyond the startup phases and all that stuff, but still in it, you just want to do a lot of things, right? You're just going too fast and chasing something that is beyond you and just running and running while you need to walk first. And so that's another part of it where you just feel like you're going too fast and you haven't set up the foundations right for you to do the next step after the next. So, and we'll talk about how to kind of slow down and reduce that feeling of overwhelming that we all have, right? This is something that we all have, and because especially in this age of digital technology, we are so connected to everything. We get information everywhere, and everything seems just utterly important, right? Everything that we get to our faces, like, oh, this is gonna crush the world, right? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really do anything because we just keep on living and we keep going. And that's something that we can, use a little bit more to focus on that. But those are kind of my first thoughts there. What are you?
Hey, I like what you said
I
about.
hope it didn't overwhelm you there,
No,
Brendan.
not at all. It's good, Benny. We can bounce around here. But one thing you said there at the end was this idea of information and something like that we have, I guess, society now has in abundance, right? Because we have access to on every device in our pocket, and we can get any information we want at a moment's notice. And I just want to put that into perspective for people. Like the amount of information that we now receive in a given day or week is the amount of information that 50 years ago people got. Like it is. So if you feel overwhelmed a lot, that's okay. And that's honestly, I don't know if our brains are made to consume information like this and be inundated with breaking news alerts and immediate notifications to our phone. Things are happening. Like I do believe there should be some space between us and breaking news, but unfortunately we don't have that. So feeling overwhelmed and feeling this sort of thing because of that overload is completely reasonable and completely understandable. So I did just kind of want to like start there for a second. But and then I do think that like what you said too is having too much on our plate. One way kind of out of this feeling of overwhelm is to start saying no to more things. Seneca talks about we give away our time like it's nothing, but we won't give away our money, right? So we keep a tighter grip on our money, but we don't do that with our time because we say yes to. There's a multitude of reasons why people would do that, but ultimately I think it comes down to wanting to be a people pleaser, wanting people to like you have to do this thing or some sort of obligation. But it really doesn't align with you. It really isn't part of what you want to do today, but you say yes to it anyway because you feel some sort of obligation. So the biggest, unlock for me personally on this specific journey is saying no relentlessly. And the thing that helped me, I don't know, give myself permission, so to speak, with this was if someone asked me to do something or go somewhere or whatever, and my answer wasn't hell yes, I definitely want to do that, well, then it's a no. I'm not going to give a half-hearted yes. I'm going to give a full-blown yes, or I'm going to give a no. And it's difficult. It's uncomfortable to tell people no, but there is to telling people no. There is an art form to how you communicate that to someone. But I do think that is kind of the first step is understanding what's important to you and then understanding where your time is being allocated to. Because if it's where your time is being allocated does not align to what you're feeling, right? Like what Benny was talking about with being able to work and coming into this flow state. Like if your day-to-day living aligned with what you want to do, you are going to feel overwhelmed, anxiety all the time. And that's going to be full for you and the people around you. So it's our duty and our responsibility to address this. So I would say that is kind of a first step is, what are you saying? Yeah, turn the finger towards yourself and say, what things am I doing? Add to this overwhelming feeling. Because like I said earlier, there is things in life is going to bring to your door want. So why add things yourself, on top of that? Have to be prepared for the things that are going to come, that are going to be problematic or issues that we don't really want to deal with, but we have to. So why add others that we don't want to deal with? So getting really strict, understanding that you give up your time, our valuable asset, so freely. So when you can start to get more of a tightness on that, I feel like that to kind of balance the overwhelm. But it's funny, with the work thing. I've been there. Benny and Bryce and I have a group together on WhatsApp where we communicate. And Benny is also in Europe, so he's about six to hours or so ahead of me. So I'll wake up in the morning, and Benny, of course, has just been in that flow state, and I've got voice messages and text and links and everything. And there has been times where sometimes that's overwhelming. And sometimes I see this and I get so excited and so jazzed because like these are things that I want to work on. And I know that working on Via Stoica and building this company and doing what we do here is being and purposeful and aligned with me because I get these messages from Benny and it's super exciting. Like, yeah, I'm excited about the new thing he's come up with or the new idea or whatever. So that feeling is something that you should try and hold on to when you get it. And you know that's something that's you. When you get that sort of, oh God, I have to do this again, that's something that you might want to double click on and spend some time with and really understand if hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But yeah, I think that is one thing. But what about you, Benny? What do you think? I mean, I know you talked about things being on, too much on your plate. But what is sort of the Stoic approach to getting those things off your plate?
Yeah, and one of the things that people know they know that I have a lot of ideas. So, there's WhatsApp groups, they can overflow sometimes, but and that's also the good thing, right? Is to see like, oh, okay, when you don't feel like it, you just say, I just don't feel like this, right? And the good thing to remember, and you mentioned it a little bit, is like, yes, things are important, right? But when a week is passed, even if you open a newspaper, right, or you watch the news a week later, you would have forgotten what you read today, and you think like, oh wow, that was really the most important news that happened, and the next week something else happened. So that's something to remember. Like even those things, if you're at work and you're facing a problem, you think, oh, this is this is gonna crush me, right? Like Seneca says, but that's all in your head, right? So when we look at what overwhelms us, this is all in our heads. This is something that we create, right? We added extra value. We added extra weight to all these things that we're dealing with. And we can also take the weight off, right? There are mental practices that we can take. We can just, compartmentalize them and say, okay, this is important for me, but if it doesn't get done, then I'll figure something else out, right? Or I'll ask for help. And you don't have to do everything by yourself, right? That's another thing where some people are very prone to just show people that they can do everything by themselves, and then you get overwhelmed, you get burned out. But if you just make sure that you have help and you just assess this stuff and say, hey, I can't do this by myself, let me just find someone else to help me, or maybe split it up. So it's all in our head, right? This feeling of overwhelm is also, when we talk about like the Stoic impressions, this is giving assent or just accepting impressions or judgments on things that happen around us, which are wrong, right? We say like, oh, I've got to do all of this stuff because it's so important. It isn't really, right? And the Stoics, they really, they show you what is really important. And that's, again, doing the virtuous thing. Sometimes when you take on a job and it's too much, the virtuous thing would be to split it up because you are not able to give your full attention, all of your best. You would have to hurry, right? So the job doesn't get done. So then in some cases, it is the best thing to just split it up, or as Brendan said, to say no, because you are just not able to do it, right? So it isn't just, no isn't only for you, but it's also for the things around you, right? Because if you're at a job and you just say yes to everyone, your bosses, your managers are going to think that you are going to be able to finish everything in time, right? But if you say no, then they will know that someone else needs to be at it. So again, those are the important things, the importance of communication. One of the things how to deal with it is in that sense, right? Make your priorities straight for yourself. Again, first, make sure that you do the right thing, and also spend time with spend the time that you want to spend the time. If you say, I've got to work late, the more you work late, the more jobs you're going to get, because people will know that you'll finish it and you stay as long as you have to. But if you say, I'm going to go home at 5 o'clock because I want to spend time with my family, I want to do this, I want to do that, then they will know exactly how much work they can give you, right? So it's about setting boundaries, just, having clear boundaries for yourself. And that only can happen once you have your priorities set of what you think is important in your life, right? Your values and your principles are clear. Again, those are the foundational things to work on. And then when we do have those tasks, right? When we do have them, the best thing about it is action, right? A lot of the times when I feel overwhelmed and I just sit there, and sometimes I feel I catch myself just sitting there, like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And the more I start thinking about it, the more time is lost without me doing anything and just feeling overwhelmed. While I can just say, let's make a list, let's see what the first thing is that I can do right now and just get it over with. And I usually, well, I say sometimes, usually, I tend to start with the thing that I like the least, right? If I get that away, not even the thing that I like the least, but the thing that is the most, the biggest obstacle to me. I feel like, I can't do this, right? But sometimes when I feel creative, it's like, okay, let me use the energy that I have right now to write, and then later do some mundane tasks that I don't really need those creative juices for. So it's also about feeling where you are in those moments. But the best way to get over it is by action. And that's what life is about, just doing things. So if you feel overwhelmed, just make sure that it's kind of what they talk about when you are reducing your debt, right? The snowball or the whatever the method, make sure that you get your interest paid off, the highest interest paid off first, and then you do all the other stuff. That's the thing with this kind of stuff. Start taking things away, start doing things. That's what life is about, action. And the great thing about it is what happens then is because you're not just, ticking boxes, you're not just doing the list, but you also start to forget about all of this stuff because you're working. Your mind is busy, focused on doing something. And that's from a Stoic point of view, that's really what life is about, to be the present and to do things instead of having your mind wander off to the future and to repercussions if you can't meet it. So those are one of the things. And one last thing before I pass it on to you is also to look at what's going on, right? To see like, okay, can I do this? What can I do? And then just delegate and just, pass things off. And you don't have to do everything by yourself. Those are the things that I try to apply when I'm dealing with overwhelming situations.
Right. I think I like that what you said too about, writing a list. I like to tell myself whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed is just one foot in front of the other, kind of that idea of one step at a time, because you can do the first thing, get that done, you can do the next thing. So I do think that is a very good suggestion there, Benny. But I like what you said about it all being in our own heads, right? Like this idea of being overwhelmed is all in our own heads. It reminds me of that quote from Meditations 847. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing, but to your of the thing. And you have the power to revoke it. So, we can decide, like, if we're feeling overwhelmed about an event, that's our decision that we've made. That's a choice we've made. And the dichotomy of control tells us that we have the ability to then change it if we want to feel differently about it. So I think that reframing your overwhelming feelings as training ground, right? Almost like viewing the chaos as a sparring partner, not as an enemy that you're fight or give, but someone that you're in the gym with, boxing with as a sparring partner to improve yourself, right? To improve your virtue, to improve your character. And that's what really it needs to be is not this, overwhelming feelings are going to come and they're going to happen. And that's also, we can't stop that. But it's more about taking that moment to reflect on it and then reframe it in a way that is fitting and suitable to your life. So for me personally, that's where I say, okay, if I have this chaos and this unwelcomed thing coming to my door, I'm going to use it as a chance to improve myself. I'm going to use it as a sparring partner, try and make my life better. So, all of these things, whether people or stressors in there, aren't people, other externals. So I do think that is like kind of a big thing here is this dichotomy of control, understanding what we do control and what we don't control. And at the end of the day, it's our judgment and when we tell ourselves that we have all these things on our plate, overwhelmed and we're stressed out, we have decided to be that way. We yes to things that we shouldn't have. We have viewed things overly, I do this a lot where I think things are a much bigger deal or are going to take me a lot longer time-wise than they actually do. Impressions were wrong, so examine your own impressions and make sure that those are right. But at the end, I think that the core idea, as we kind of this up of this would be that all on us. It's all on us to kind of recognize that we're feeling overwhelmed, recognize that we're feeling stressed. And what are we going to do about it? What habits are we going to change in our lives that we're going to do differently in our day-to-day that's going to change this? So, that's where I think it's really, we talk about journaling a lot here, but anything that you can do to get internal, to get more and a more comprehensive of yourself is going to help you in this journey of feeling less overwhelmed, less stress, and all those sort of things. I do want to kind of get some, if you have anything else, any, prayers or things like that the listeners can use specifically, or if you just have some closing thoughts.
Yeah, no, and good stuff. And just like at the end, I just wanted to kind of reverse it a little bit as well, that there are people who want to be overwhelmed. They want to take on as much work as they can just to validate that they're important, right? To validate kind of their existence. And again, when we look at the Stoic point of view, that becomes from read the externals, then determine whether we are valuable or not, right? And I've worked with people in many jobs who I've seen do this, where they just take on all the work that they can. They say yes to everything because that'll make them feel that they are a pivotal part of that company. But then their job, their output might suffer, and at one point they'll get fired, and they feel like now the company or the organization, whatever they're working for, is going to collapse, but it just keeps going, right? So we are not as important as we think that we are. And that's fine, because that'll give us more space to live the life that we should be living, right? That gives us all the freedom. Yes, we need to work. We need to have a job. We live in a day and age where money is important, right? Because we pay for stuff with it. And we have our duties. Again, as the Stoic, we are social beings. So we do have our duties to other people. But even if we're not here, the world is going to turn, right? The world is going to keep going, and other people are going to do this stuff. And even Marcus Aurelius says it. Within 15 years, people long forgot my name. The irony is that now, 2,500 years later, we're still talking about him. So he might have been wrong about that one. But at one point, his name will be forgotten, right? At one point, it ceases to echo through eternity, if we wish, right? So, and that's the same thing with us. And that should give us some kind of relief. Yes, we do the things that we feel like we should be doing, right? But they don't depend on whether the earth is going to keep spinning. So that should give you a little bit of breathing room in what you're doing. So, and allow you to make, valuable things and the things that are important in your life at the forefront, and not the things that you think are important to have to accomplish and have to seize all these externals. So those are kind of my final thoughts. Focus on the things that you can control, the dichotomy of control, and all the other stuff. Do them the best you can, right? Delegate, give things away, but don't overdo them, because then no one is going to benefit from it.
Oh yeah, well said there, Benny. I think the thing that popped into the image that popped, we were talking, was that episode from Seinfeld where George is just constantly trying to seem busy at work so that people don't give him work to do, so he just seems overwhelmed and stressed all the time. And I feel like that he's like kind of the poster boy for being overwhelmed. And for anyone that's watched Seinfeld, I imagine you don't want a George Costanza life. So doing what we can to eliminate this overwhelming from our lives is going to be the best way to not end up like George. But I do appreciate the conversation today.
Be like Kramer.
It was really great. Definitely. Yeah, be more like Kramer, when in doubt. But I do think that this was good. I definitely feel a lot better about what's on today. And I know that next time I'm overwhelmed, I'm going to have some things to use in order to kind of quell those emotions. If you yourself, the listener, are struggling with anything that you feel overwhelmed and you want to talk to someone about it, for a free consultation on our website, if you go to viastoica.com, where you can meet with one of us and discuss what you got going on, and we can give you our insights. I'd love to meet you, love to connect with you. And if you decide, you can also have coaching packages that you can purchase after the fact, but just as the free kind of consultation to begin with, no problem. So if you want to check that out, viastoica.com. But thank you so much for listening today. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a conversation from Benny and I. And Benny, thank you so much for your time. And always your wisdom is appreciated. So have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Via Stoica Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. Your feedback will help us reach more like-minded people on the journey to self-improvement. If you want to get in touch with us or find more information, you can go to viastoica.com, your one-stop platform for all things Stoicism and living better. And remember, virtue is the only good.